And just look at this. Where are her eyebrows? Hey cool kids, for this month's sketchbook tour we have another digital sketchbook tour, and this time I've decided to delve into some of my oldest, I want to say digital art. As you can see, this first piece isn't digital art, but some of my oldest art on the internet, which exists on my Photobucket account. This was where I uploaded a lot of pieces I drew for individuals on Gaia or that sort of thing, just because it was the easiest place to upload without like having to worry about hyperlinking or anything like that. So we start off with this beautiful work of art. This was originally a pencil drawing I had done in a sketchbook, and it was my very first time trying to upload art online. I remember this specific user, the one with the snail avatar, they had requested a drawing of themselves with your avatar, so I drew them with me, obviously, and I remember at the time they said, hey, and if I like your art, I'll give you a tip. And so I was like, oh cool, I'll get money. And so I was trying to talk my grandpa into letting me use his scanner, and I was like, there's someone online who says if I draw them art, they'll give me money. And he was like, that sounds like a scam. And I was like, no, I swear it's not. It's on the internet. No one lies. And then you wanna know what? They didn't give me any Gaia gold for this. I worked so hard on it. Even applied some of the really bad Photobucket filters, as you can see. Oh, here we have just a little banner I had in my signature on Gaia for when I ran this writing contest called Postcards, which was actually a really fun contest to run. It was back when there was sort of a writing community on Gaia, which has pretty much died out by now as far as I'm aware. But I really enjoyed running this contest. And then we got into the MSPaint drawing days. Now there was this forum where you would draw the user above you in MSPaint, and that's pretty much where I got my start with digital art. And so I don't think this was the very first one I did. The very first one I did is actually on my DeviantArt, but I got in trouble with DeviantArt for hyperlinking my post. Like, they legit sent me a warning like, hey, if you keep doing this, we'll deactivate your account. And I was like, oh, okay. And so that was why I started using Photobucket. And these are also tiny. If you remember from my Paint Tool Side tutorial, I mentioned I always used to draw on tiny canvases. Like, look at how small this is. This is real size. Remember with this one, I spent ages getting that gradient on her face to look right. This one I was actually super proud of because of those smoke clouds. I was like, wow, that's such a cool art trick that I did in MSPaint. Who needs Paint Tool Side or Photoshop? And then this was me experimenting with the tools some more in MSPaint, as you can see in the beautiful texturing on his hair. I remember for this one, I was really overambitious with this drawing, and the person's avatar had them with a guillotine behind them, and so I thought it'd be super cool to draw him sitting on the guillotine, sitting on the guillotine. And I tried to draw it, I had the pose all worked out, and then I just sort of hit this realization that no, Melody, you can't draw that, that's too much work, and so I gave up and did a headshot. But I still remember what it was supposed to look like. This wasn't even for that same thread I mentioned before. This was actually someone just requesting free art of a panda, if I remember correctly. I was like, okay, I know what pandas look like probably. Oh, and this is one of the first GIMP / MSPaint fusion pieces I have. I used to do all the line art and I think also the color blocking in MSPaint, and then I'd switch over to GIMP to do the shading. And I don't know if you can tell, but I was a really big fan of the burn and dodge tools, and I used those religiously. Oh, this is from the first time I tried to start a freebie shop, which, is where you give out free art, and I figured, it's a freebie shop. I'll get a ton of customers, because who doesn't want free art? And no one wanted my free art. But I did eventually get some people, I think in a different freebie shop, because I was upset that that first one didn't work out. And this one I was so proud of for the longest time. I really liked how I did the detailing on her dress, and I think the main reason that worked out was because normally when I would do white lighting on skin or hair, it made it look desaturated, but because the dress was black, it didn't really desaturate it, and so it actually worked out. And looking at it now, the folds of the fabric just made no sense, but I was so proud of this back in the day. Then I decided that if I wanted to get more reaction for my free art shops, I might want to actually put art in my picture for my banner, and so I drew this beautiful anime headshot. This picture, my friend actually went up to me in school and was like, Melody, I love that picture you drew, it's just so good. And so I was so proud of this piece. There's a lot going on here. I love these fabric folds on this arm. Like, what is that? Why is it so lumpy? Why? And now we get into the darker period of my art, which I lovingly named at the time the derps. It was just as basic. I couldn't draw chibi. I always struggled with drawing chibis that looked good, and I figured I discovered this perfect chibi type method, but it wasn't anime enough to call it chibi, so I just called them derps. And this was the first one I did. They don't really go up from here. And this one was the one that made me decide I was really gonna like stick with this art style, because the user I drew this picture for loved it so much that she put it in her signature on Gaia, and that was like a big compliment for your art back in the day. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. I was like, yeah, humor, that's what I was going for with this. And then we have another derp. Again, look at that burn and dodge tool usage in the hair. Like, that's some high quality stuff right there. This one actually didn't turn out too bad, but I think it's because it's a non-humanoid type character. And so it doesn't look good, but like it's not as awful as the other ones were. But that mouth, why did I put so many details into those teeth? Here we have another one, which is just a beautiful work of art. Remember this one I was actually quite proud of, specifically because of like the little itty bitty tiny bunny on it. And I even tried adding in color in the eyes to make them look cuter, but it didn't look right with the style. Look at that purse. What is that? It looks like she took a cardboard box or something and like ripped up the lid to use as a handle. What was I doing? Here we have some beautiful Homestuck OC art. Again, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to commit to giving them eye colors or not, but because this was like a troll OC, they needed the yellow eyes, so I did my best. This was another one I was really proud of, and this outfit I ended up drawing a ton of times because there was like this period of time when it was like the most popular outfit for anyone to wear, and so a lot of my freebie art ended up including it, so I got pretty good at it by like the end of that outfit's popularity. This one was another one I really liked. I started trying to experiment a little more with line weight, like not very well as you can see because like the lines are still the same weight all the way across, but like I gave her thinner line weight in her hair and then in the detailings on the legs, and I liked how that looked. Tried doing what I want to call cell shading, even though I knew it wasn't in MSPaint, like this sort of like liney type coloring shading, and it looks so bad. Like I even ditched it for like this part of the skirt, which looks a little bit better, but like what was I doing? And look at this arm. What was I doing? And here we see the outfit again. I don't really remember much about this one. I think this was someone's like X-Men OC or something. We have a brief break from the derps. If I remember correctly, it's because this avatar didn't have their eyes showing, and I found that this style didn't work if you couldn't see the eyes. Oh, and then this one was for an art trade that was supposed to happen, where she was like, anyone who draws a picture of either my avatar or my avatar with my K-pop idol, I'll draw them free art. And so I was like, oh yeah, I really want free art. And so I went to draw her. I tried drawing her with a K-pop idol, but he didn't work the style, and so I just ditched that. And then she never responded or like gave me my free art, and I was so insulted. I was like, I worked so hard on this. Like I ended up liking this picture so much. I had it on Facebook for a while, and I was like, look, friends and family, look at this beautiful art style I have created. Oh, and then so confident that this art style was going to be a hit that I started my first art shop where I was asking for like actual Gaia money in return, and people bought it, which is the most bizarre thing to me. This was my very first commission. I remember being like really surprised because the person who offered me this commission, she had like a noob avatar. Like she had all like the original clothes you get when you start, but she offered me a lot of money for this art. Like I don't remember how much it was, but I remember back in the day I was like, wow, this is the most money I'll ever get on my art before like the Gaia economy crashed. And then we have this lovely little derp art I did for my mule account's signature. Here it is a little bigger. I really liked how she turned out, and then I was trying to put the shadow behind her because that was part of her avatar, and it didn't turn out well. Here I was back to using just MSPaint. I think this was another one for that MSPaint art forum. And here we have another commission, and like I mentioned before, I realized this style didn't work if you couldn't see the eyes, but this person specifically commissioned me to draw a picture of a character who always wore sunglasses. She even commissioned me for 2 pieces of these 2 characters, so like one of the first character and then another one of this character, and I really liked how this one turned out, again because you could see the eyes. One was another commission of someone's Naga character. I spent a long time trying to like draw these scales in to get like the snake tail texture right, and you can't even see it because I drew them so pale. With a lot of them, I'd end up uploading the final image on DeviantArt, but I didn't really like this one enough to upload the final image on DeviantArt, so I just kept it on Photobucket. This was another one which I was actually really proud of. I liked how I did the wings without line art, because a lot of my art was very reliant on line art back in the day, and it still is, to be honest. But I was like, oh man, look at that. Those wings look so realistic because there's no line art on them. I'm a professional artist now. And then I finally broke out of the style. I think if I remember correctly, I just took a break from drawing for a while and then came back and was like, okay, let's do something that's not bad. And I remember I watched a tutorial on how to put line weight in your art to make it look better. And like I said, it was something I experimented with before, but I wasn't really good with. But this was me really trying to hone in my high-quality line weight abilities. This was one that I spent a really long time on, as you can tell. Actually, I did try drawing a picture of this person's avatar, like, well, but it just didn't turn out good, and I knew I needed to, like, put some sort of art out there. And I just got so frustrated that I gave up and created this. Here we can see more of that high-tech blending method. I think this one was definitely done in GIMP because there's a fade on like this tie right here. But I remember I watched this tutorial on how to shade by, you draw the lightest color and then the darkest color, and then you just sort of select a color in between and you keep like gradiating with that. And like the artist who did it really well and her art looked really great, but I just never managed to like perfect it as well as she did. Oh, this was one of my first tries at like legitimate pixel art. I was trying to draw someone's, I think it was like an RPG type OC, which is why I decided I'd try to make it sprite sized. It's still a bit too big, and like there's a lot going on with this picture. Like, first of all, this head to like shoulders ratio, like what is that? And then like, love how this leg's like this long, and then this leg, it goes as long as the other leg, and then there's more leg coming out the back. Like, why? Like, and the arms, and just, I didn't understand anatomy back in the day. Why are her eyes like that? Why is her head, like, it leans forward. Heads aren't supposed to do that. What was I doing? If I remember correctly, this was actually the first drawing I did entirely on GIMP. I was very proud of it back then. Then we have some traditional art, which I think you guys have seen in another sketchbook tour, but this is what it looked like after I scanned it. As you can tell, my scanner is really high quality. Oh, this one, I was so frustrated with this. So I had switched to a new computer, and so it had a new MSPaint on it, and so I spent ages drawing this picture, and then I was like, oh, I'll save it and come back to it later. And then I went to come back to it, and the new MSPaint was set to save every picture in a JPEG format instead of a PNG format, which, like, I did mostly pixel-based art, and you can't do that in a JPEG format because all the pixels get corrupted, and it was just compressed and bad, and I got so frustrated that I just cropped off the parts of the picture that I didn't finish. It's like, here, have this, I'm sorry. This was me trying at the whole lineless art thing again. This one I was so proud of because of this hand. Like, I still can't draw hands to this day, but I spent ages trying to draw this hand. Finally got it down, and then I went to give it to the person I'd created it for and realized I forgot to color in the eyes. I was like, oh, you're just doing magic, and so your eyes are magically white, and that's why they look like that. Please love me. And you know what? She never even responded to my art, and was never like, oh, hey, thanks for drawing me a thing, which was like my biggest pet peeve for giving free art, is when people just don't respond at all, because it's like, this is free. The least you can do is say, wow, why the heck didn't you draw my eyes in? This was another one I was really proud of. I feel like I was getting a little more comfortable with like varying my line weight, and I remember I actually did this one entirely in GIMP as well. Not that you can really tell because like I still kept it to just flat colors, but I figured out how to turn down the opacity of the brush I was using, and so her hairpiece, it was supposed to be like bubbles, and I couldn't get it to look like bubbles because this is going to sound weird, but I'm almost positive I drew this one in 2010 because of the face shape, because that was the year my little sister was born, and so I started drawing more like baby face type characters. Then my mouse, the battery was dying in it, and I did all of these drawings with the mouse because I didn't get my tablet until like 2014, I want to say, or 2012? I don't know, but I didn't get my tablet until years later. And so my mouse was like freaking out, and I just couldn't get the shading in her hair right, and I got really frustrated. This one might have worked out better if I understood facial anatomy at all, but I clearly didn't. And so I was trying to draw this character with no mouth because her avatar had no mouth, and I figured I'd use like cheekbones to like shape out her face where the mouth couldn't, and it didn't look good. And it's because I could not be bothered to do any life studies. And this one, I believe we've gone through the sketchbook that had the pencil drawing for this in, but basically I drew out the initial sketch in pencil, and then I tried coloring it entirely in GIMP, and I had plans to shade it too, but I couldn't get the coloring how I liked it, so I just sort of gave up. This picture, I'm not sure if I drew it or my little sister did, because it looks sort of like my art did at the time, but at the same time, I don't remember ever drawing it. But it's got the really awful facial anatomy, so maybe it was one of my artworks. I don't remember it. This is line art for a freebie for someone I did on Gaia. I actually ended up coloring it, but the line art I thought turned out really well, but then when I tried coloring it, it didn't turn out as well, and she ended up looking like a 40-year-old woman, and she was supposed to be like 8. It was me trying to do realism, I think, or semi-realism, because I didn't draw anime eyes for once. It would have turned out well if maybe I bothered to look at a single reference image of what a real face looks like. Again, as you can see, the line art was not bad, but then when I tried coloring it, everything just went wrong. I think one of the biggest problems is this cheekbone situation going on here. Like, what is this jawline? I don't know what I was trying to accomplish, and I was really proud of this hair, which look at it now, it's like, eh. But back then, I was so proud of the hair, and I really liked how her, like, body turned out, because I didn't really draw full bodies very often, but that face, what was I doing? This one was another one that was done entirely in GIMP, I believe, and I really liked how, like, her hair turned out. I couldn't get that hand down to save my life, but, like, I liked the hair, and I was starting to get into the period where I was experimenting more with line color, and I think I went too pale with the color of the line art on this because it just makes everything look really pale and blown out. Oh, this one I actually really liked. It was for a user whose name was something along the lines of like Fear the Wind or something, and so I drew her afraid of some wind, and this was me sort of getting a chibi-ish style down that wasn't like the terrible, awful abomination that the derps were, and I was proud of this one. Although that leg, what's happening? This one was another one I was so proud of. I loved the look of the eyelashes. If I remember correctly, the person's avatar was actually dressed as Black Widow, and I didn't realize that at the time. So this is sort of like Black Widow fan art, but like, I don't know, I was so proud of this, and I kind of wanted to make a character based around this drawing, even though this drawing was a drawing of another person's avatar, which was based on another character, so like, the whole IP struggle with that might have been an issue, but I was just so proud of this picture. And then this was another one that I was really proud of because I was like, wow, I basically like mastered realism. Like, all my art's the perfect fusion between anime and real life, and like, who needs to even study anatomy when you can just only draw the shoulders up because like facial anatomy doesn't matter. And it's like, what was I doing? Oh, and then this is set against a black background, so sorry that you can't see like the detailing in the hair, but it was probably some like scene type haircut. But like, what's going on with her body? That's what I want to know. What is this? What is this? I remember this is for a user named GBP, I think, and they were on the art forums I used to go on a lot, and so I ended up drawing them a lot, and they drew me a couple of times too. And so I wanted to try really hard to make like my drawings of them good because I admired this person because I saw them around a lot, and they seemed to be like the kind of person who had friends. I was like, wow, I want to have friends someday too. So I actually worked really hard on this one, and I was really happy with how it came out. And like, even now, it's not good, but I like it. Got into that phase around this time period where I was drawing the noses super red because that's what all my favorite webcomic artists did. They had like these super red noses. I was like, you know what? I can probably get away with just not drawing the nose and just drawing like a pink spot. This one was good because you can't see that I had no idea how facial anatomy worked because his hair covers his entire face. And we're going to close off on this one, which was one, again, back in the day, I was super proud of this. I was super proud, like, anytime I did a full body and it vaguely looked like a human and not some weird Lovecraftian nightmare. Which, I mean, it's what I want my art to look like now, so I guess we've come full circle. But anyway, I really like this one. But, like, why is her eye? It looks like it's just going to flow off her face. Like, what is this? But that's all the time I have for this video. If you're new here, maybe consider subscribing. I do have some art that's not actually as awful as this. And on that note, I also have a lot more old art in my Photobucket account, so let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in seeing. But that is all I have for today, so thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you next time. Bye!